All right, welcome back into the Falcons Audible, presented by AT&T. We are back. That's Shock. That's Arch. I'm Rack. Just so you know, I usually tell Arch to take his credentials off before the show, but we could just leave him because it's just kind of like, it's just kind of part of the deal.
I thought
he has access to the building, okay? You know that he's allowed to come in here.
I want to make sure I don't lose it.
I had to
dog.
check.
I had around my neck.
I had to check for a second. I thought you let one loose, but you just letting your seat down. I heard some air come out. I was like, whoa.
Calm down. All right. We don't need to get into passing gas to start the podcast.
Hey, we keep it real on here. I'm just saying.
Well, let's keep it real, Shock, and talk about a Falcons victory against a divisional opponent, 26-24. And, guys, another instant classic. I mean, I'm not sure about you guys, Arch, on your pregame show leading up to the game. DJ, with some of your efforts, but we talked about on the pregame show just the rivalry, how tightly contested it was. And we talked about some just like what were some of your moments coming out of the rivalry, but then it was like, we got another one. Arch, we got another classic for a Falcons-Saints rivalry. What did you think of how this one? Just kind of, again, big picture, and then we'll kind of dive into the details a little bit more.
It felt like the normal thing. I think when all of us we all had an opportunity to be a part of the rivalry from a player perspective, you kind of expect it. We talked about last week what the rivalry is, an old college rivalry to a certain extent, and two teams that got put in the league, and we'll shove you out west with the 49ers and the Rams, and then we finally get back here to where we're supposed to be in the NFC South. But it's two teams that I think have a lot of respect for one another, two fan bases that can't stand one another, and as it turns out, you played it out that way. I think that even
played out in the stands too, right?
Well, even on the scoreboard, I don't think they actually put the Saint name on the scoreboard. They just left the score.
Visitors. Falcons, visitors.
That's just the way it is. And as it turned out, the game played out that way. But as far as play in the game, I think there were a lot of good things in the game that you could build on. Certainly, it's a lot more fun to build on some of the negatives and get some of the negatives out of the way when you win the game.
100%.
New Orleans is on the other end of that, down in New Orleans, getting ready for their game this weekend, and they've got to travel out and take on Kansas City on Sunday night coming up. So they got to lick their wounds pretty quickly. So does Atlanta with Tampa on Thursday night. But I just thought it was a classic game of mistakes here, penalties there, a turnover, little things that happen in the game, and do you play yourself in position late to have a chance to win the game?
And that's, DJ, one thing that we have been talking about here on the podcast seemingly every week is even though there was a couple games we came up on the losing side, they've always had a chance to win at the end. And that was the case again in this one. And it looked a little dicey for a while, but until a final drive. And, sometimes you don't really script it up, right? You're thinking, okay, maybe Kirk can put together another drive like he did at Philadelphia, right? Yeah. Well, weren't necessarily firing on all cylinders on the 2-minute drill, but they get somewhat of a gift of a penalty, which was huge. Yeah. It happens, right? You take it where you can get it. You ended up getting, a 30-yard penalty, pass interference penalty, kind of helps out the field position. We talk so much here, DJ, on offense and defense, but can we talk a little bit about special teams finally? Can we talk a little special teams finally?
Me and Archie are going to sit back and let you ride out on this. You know what I'm saying? So,
But no, it was great to see kind of opening and closing the game with two huge special teams plays. We end up punting. Punt gets muffed down inside the 5-yard line. I don't know why you're trying to catch the ball at that spot on the field. Ridiculous. Don't know why. But we'll take it. And then Kadarius Hodge, who's kind of turned into a special teams maven, if you will, just Johnny on the spot, ends up with the touchdown. And then, of course, Koo was good. He's accurate. He's got ice in his veins in this situation, but we didn't know about career long. Mm-hmm. But it seems like it's par for the course in the NFL this year, right? Kickers are just kicking them from longer than ever. What did you make of special teams performance in this game?
First off, my man Koo, the longest in Mercedes-Benz history.
History.
I mean, come on, man. That's getting it done. I love the quote that Ra had with Arch after the game. It didn't matter. We was going to end it with Koo wherever it was going to be at. And that thing probably was good for 62, 63 if they let him go a little bit further. But I think it's the ultimate where we talk about it all the time, and it sounds so cliche. And we talk about it all the time. People say, oh, that's all you say. But it's the ultimate game of complementary football. Mm-hmm. It's the ultimate team game. And, yeah, offense and defense gets all the hype, and they got, all the different guys you could talk about from week to week. And we've talked about, the new additions on this side of the ball, on that side of the ball. But at the end of the day, that third phase always matters. Mm-hmm. And it always, finds a way to rear its head in the National Football League, too, because of what you just talked about was these games usually come down to one possession. Yeah. These usually come down to something at the end of a ball game. And you don't really think about that guy who's got to kick it until it gets to that moment. It's like, oh, we're getting in field goal range. What's his range? How many has he made today? How many has he made this year? And then you start worrying about, what kind of kicker you got. But I think for, I don't know how many years it's been now, whenever we got into that range, we've always felt confident with our man Koo. We've always felt confident with the way he's played. But then give the other guys credit, too. I mean, the punt that Pinion just, absolutely drills. I mean, he's looking up and that thing is just coming down forever and he just loses where he's at. I mean, that's a credit to being, really efficient in the way you go about your business. And then guys running down there and, making sure, because we talk about it in training camp, how a lot of guys make this ball team is through special teams. Yeah. And I don't know why people don't take it as serious, but a lot of guys have had 10, 12, 13-year careers off playing special teams. And we saw it on Sunday how exactly special teams matters and how each part of that phase gives you a chance to win ball games. Koo knocks through 4 of them, a couple of them from 50-plus. Pinion's involved. We got guys doing all kinds of stuff. So it was fun to see all 3 phases, have a part in that ball game. And the special team was the one that just happened to be highlighted the most.
Younghoe Koo, 4 for 4 on the day field goals, 42, 44, 53, and, of course, the game winner, career-long in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, record 58-yarder to win the game. So that kind of a good wrap-up of the special teams. But Arch, when we talk about defense and we talk about picking off passes, the majority of the time, especially this year, we've been talking about the safeties, right? Their penchant for picking off passes and the fact that they've done it so often throughout their career. And at some point this year, it was going to be somebody else, right? It was going to be somebody else. And it just so turns out it's Troy Andersen. Not only does he get a career high in tackles, but he gets a pick 6, his first career interception, and his first career score ends up being a touchdown as well. Takes it 47 yards back for the score. What'd you make of the way that he played in the game?
Yeah, he was phenomenal. Sideline to sideline is something that you've kind of been waiting for. He's such a tremendous athlete. You go back and you look him up at Montana State and how good an athlete he was. Played quarterback 1 year, played running back 1 year, then shifted and played linebacker, and he was the FCS Player of the Year at linebacker. So the guy's been good wherever they put him. You were waiting for that moment. I've always often thought about, is this guy a red zone guy you can use? Do you put him at tailback at 6'2", 244 pounds, and just toss him the football and say, hey, keep this guy out of the end zone?
Our version of Taysom Hill or something, right?
Exactly right. So you wondered, okay, at some point he's going to end up with a ball in his hands. He blocked a punt, if you remember, out in L.A. He blocks a punt that Lorenzo Carter scoops and scores. So when is Troy potentially going to get the ball in his hands? Well, Matthew Judon gets good pressure off the edge, and I thought it was pretty cool because they try to influence block, meaning the offensive tackle steps back, try to encourage Judon up the field, and then slip out and get in the screen. Well, Judon slow rushes it, doesn't go after the quarterback. The quarterback wants him to come to him, but he stops. And now he's kind of shadow boxing him. And if you look at Derek Carr, he tries to drop sideways, going off to the side.
That ain't working.
And Judon blocks it with his elbow, and it pops up in the air. And, of course, then Troy Andersen ends up with it. And then you get a chance to see the athleticism, what thunder coming downhill really looks like. Chris Olave wanted no part of that at the goal line to try to keep it out of the end zone. So pretty cool moment there. And we talk all the time about making plays when you have an opportunity to make a play. And, offense was, good here and then sputtered here. And make some plays when you have to. Cordero Hodge, Shock talked about that, made the play. When the ball was on the ground, didn't go out of the end zone. He got on it, made the play. This ball gets bad in the air. Troy Andersen makes the play. So, again, the ultimate in complementary football, but it was cool to see one of the really better athletes on this team actually have the ball in his hands.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It was fun to watch him because throughout the course of the game, I'm watching and it seems like every time we looked up, it was like Andersen tackle. So then I went and I looked and I was like, somewhere like beginning of the third quarter, I was like, dang, he got 13 tackles already.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you look down and it's like, oh, this is a career high. So he continued to be productive. Obviously, it was a great moment to get the interception for a touchdown. So we talked about special teams. We talked about defense. Offensively, yes, sputtered a little bit. Did not score any touchdowns in the game. Still found a way to win because it's a 3-phase game. One thing I thought was positive is the reemergence of Tyler Allgeier.
Hey, now.
And not to say that it was an indictment on Bijan, because we know how electric of a player he is, but I think everybody kind of realized that, like, we got to find a way to get Allgeier the football a little bit more. Man. Well, they made a concerted effort to do that in the game. Finishes with 60 yards on the ground, 80 total, ends up with another reception as well. I feel like he brings another element of attitude, another element of excitement into the game. It just seems like the home crowd feeds off of him when he gets the ball and he runs somebody over.
I'm watching the game and watching, that third quarter happen and watching him, and three things came to mind to me. He was physical, he was decisive, and he was powerful. You talking about running through guys. I mean, as a quarterback, to drop the football down on 3rd and 8 and he catches it and he's 5-6 yards away from the first down. You're like, okay, just not trying to do anything to hurt our team. Let's put it on the punter's foot, and we'll live to play another down. And you check it down, and the man runs through 4 or 5 different guys. And my man Lante Taylor said, did you see why Olave probably didn't want him? He was hurt after that particular play.
Lante Taylor going to have nightmares about Tyler Allgeier.
Hey, hold on, bro. I need a 20. But it was fun to watch him run, man. And when you watch him run, as big, as powerful he is, he's very decisive. And we go stretch zone, but once he sees that hole, it's foot in the ground, it's vertical, it's north and south. And if you're in front of me, I hope you got your chin strapped up.
You got to make a business decision.
Because he going to bring it. And you love, just like you mentioned, the attitude, the energy that he brought, and a guy who is completely unselfish. You look at, they bring in Bijan Robinson, and obviously he's the feature and focal guy. And not a lot of guys can sit back and wait their turn. And it's like, where has he been? Where has he been? But every time the guy steps on the field, the guy produces. And that's the ultimate professional. That's the ultimate pro, being ready for your moment. And Arch, you just mentioned, guys making those moments big and making them when it happens. Tyler Allgeier, that was his moment when the team needed a little spark on offense. It needed somebody to kind of rejuvenate and get us going, and he was that guy. So, man, big shout out to Tyler for the way he ran, the way he goes about his business, and week in and week out, he's one of those guys that you can depend on.
The opposition continues to underestimate what he can bring to the table. Now, I think that anybody that's watched tape on him, and his career high was against New Orleans in the last game of the year last year, so you would think New Orleans have a pretty good idea that this guy can bring the noise.
Yep.
And he brought that physicality that Shock's talking about. I think in the reception, I think I saw Dennis Allen holding on to one shoulder, the offensive, the head coach at some point trying to get that big guy on the ground. But the thing that continues to amaze me is his ability, and I talked about this here a couple weeks ago, as much as we talk about thunder and lightning, he's got some lightning in him too.
Doubt.
And when he bounced the wide zone play to the outside and ran around the corner, Paulson Adebo came up to try to make the play. He ran around him, and that's the corner out there. I think he shocks people with his short area quickness and then his burst.
Yeah.
And part of that is how he finishes runs on those physical runs, but the other part of it is when he gets to the edge, you better seal the edge because he's going to take it and he's going to go down the sideline. So very accomplished running back. He's a guy that we got to continue to get the football to, not to the expense of Bijan, but somehow at some point you probably begin to look at Zach maybe expanding the packages where those two are in the game at the same time.
Yeah.
And why not?
Because that's kind of the quandary that I think about, guys. And sometimes I try to put myself a little bit in the shoes of a play caller. Not that I want those shoes, but juggling those two guys, like how do you effectively get the right amount of touches? Because I could make the argument, fellas, that Bijan Robinson should touch the ball 20 times a game.
For sure.
Okay, I could make that easy argument. And then we see Tyler Allgeier, and you could say, well, gosh, he needs probably 8 to 10 touches a game, right?
Maybe
now,
more than that.
Now you're looking at 30-plus touches between two guys.
And you got 60
Kyle
plays in the
Pitts
game.
hasn't touched the ball yet. Drake London hasn't touched the ball yet. Darnell Mooney hasn't touched the ball yet.
Right.
So this is kind of the quandary you get put in. At the end of the day, to your point, you got to be unselfish because we're just trying to win football games. But how do you get your playmakers the ball to win those football games? Not saying that I got the answer, but these are some of the things that play callers have to kind of toss with in their minds as far as how are we going to beat the next opponent? How are we going to get the ball into the hands of the guys that can help us score points? And then try to make sure everybody's happy. Not that you're here to make sure people are happy, but Drake London needs to touch the ball too.
And you know what? I think this is for fans. I think you bring up a good point too, because everybody's wondering, okay, where is this offense going to explode? When is it going to look like what everybody's talked about? And I think for Zach Robinson, for this entire offense, you're still figuring it out. It's still a young season. You still got a lot of guys who are coming into new roles on this offense, and you're trying to figure out the best way to do that. And you say, hey, I don't want to be in his shoes because that's a tough thing to do. We just went off 7, 8 guys that you want to get the football to who can help you win ball games. How to do that, that is a tough job to do. Now, they're figuring it out. They're trying it. Yeah, of course, they're trying to do the best they can. But just know that it's not easy.
Yeah.
Well, and when you begin to expand what Shock's talking about from a quarterback perspective, I'm sure Kirk Cousins or whoever, Michael Penix, whoever is the quarterback at the time, steps in. I know I did. I went in and sat down with the offensive coordinator, and we would talk about, okay, I like this, I like that. Well, they haven't really executed enough stuff on the field yet to know what they maybe like a lot more than something else. So to a certain extent, the games are a little bit of a test case as to what they're doing. And plus, they're also feeling out the idiosyncrasies. I talked a little bit about this, the hints and things that you see. Different guys do things differently.
Yeah.
For me, I remember Billy White Shoes Johnson had a different wiggle at the top of his route than Charlie Brown did. And that's the same thing with Drake London. He's a big body guy. He's different than Ray McLeod is.
Yep.
And so to be able to see those hints and stuff as you drop, read coverage, and then all of a sudden I rotate my eyes and I want to anticipate throw, I know there's little things, little hints that are going to allow me to turn it loose earlier. And those are all things that they're still working through to try to get done. The beauty of it is you've had a chance, as Shock said, to win all 4 games. You've won 2 of them, and you haven't really even hit your stride yet as far as the offense goes. So, yeah, it's disturbing that you're not operating on all cylinders. You played a quarter of the season to a certain extent, but it's growing. You can see it coming. You can see guys you can see all of a sudden some of those things starting to come together. Now, it has to happen pretty quickly.
Right.
Maybe needs to happen Thursday night, certainly against an offense that we're going to talk about in Tampa that's operating pretty well. But I love the direction it's going. And defensively, real quickly, Rock, to get back to defense, how about the physicality of the little guys?
Yeah.
I mean, Mike Hughes, you do not want to make a play over his side of the field. He's going to come up and tattoo you. AJ Terrell,
Always
he loves to go.
like that.
How about D. Alford coming off the slot to get a sack?
Yeah.
I mean, those guys, you could put all those guys in your pocket. I mean, as far as how big they are.
Yeah.
But they're willing to hit you, and it establishes an attitude as to, hey, get ready. You better squeeze the football because they're going to get tattooed.
Well, they're going to have to get ready and turn the page because we got to do it on a short week, as you mentioned, Arch. One thing that kind of stuck out to me, guys, Arch, you mentioned we're kind of through the quarter of the season, right? Before, when it was a 16-game season, we could always divide it up in quarters, right?
Yeah.
Now it's 17. It's a little bit different. It's kind of just before the quarter or just after the quarter, however you want to look at it. But I look back, guys, and now that we're finished through week 4, you have 2 teams in the league. 2 teams, that's it, that are 4-0. Okay? You have 7 more teams that are 3-1. Okay? So you have 9 teams in the entire NFL that are above 500. That just was very interesting to me when I went back and I looked at all the standings. So we're going to face one of those teams this week on a short week that is 3-1 Tampa Bay Bucks. We know a lot about them, play them twice a year every year. DJ, their offense has gotten off to a pretty good start. I think you look at the playmakers, obviously Mike Evans is a guy that sticks out. Season probably got off to a little bit of a slow start, but that changed this past week. They made a concerted effort to get the football in his hands.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You got 2 guys in Godwin and Mike Evans who averaging close to 12 yards a catch. And the guy that Mike Evans is. The guy's a walking 1,000-yard receiver. I mean, done it every year. He's been in the National Football League. And you couple that with a quarterback that's playing with confidence in Baker Mayfield. And Baker has said, and he's been on record saying he is probably the most confident he's been since he's been in the National Football League, and that's where he sits at right now. And you got another year within this system. You got guys around you who you know you can depend on. This is an offense that right now is scoring about 25 points a game. They love to get after you. They're going to throw it all over the yard, and you got a quarterback that can move and can create as well. We've seen a couple of those this season already, so that's going to be a point of emphasis as well is, hey, when Baker gets outside, he's a guy that'll take off on you too, but also he wants to make the big play. He wants to throw the football down the field. He will test you when you talk about stretching the field vertically, and he's one of those guys. They've been really good on third down. I mean, they're around 42% right now on third down. Baker's taking care of the football, completing 70% of his passes, 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He got a couple of rushing touchdowns. They've gotten after him a few times. They've been sacked a few times. That may be, a little bit of, hey, Baker likes to scramble around, and, he'll take some timely sacks here and there. But still, this is an offense that will absolutely give, as we know over the years, has forced the Falcons to you have to play top down because they're going to get after you. They're going to throw it vertically, and we'll see which Baker Mayfield we actually get because we've seen a couple different Bakers over the years, but right now it looks like he's in a good groove and he understands exactly what they want to do as an offense.
Yeah, and to your point, I mean, for the opposing team, it's not the greatest thing when you hear that your quarterback is playing with the most confidence maybe that he ever has. If you're on his team, you love it. One thing that might be working in the Falcons' favor is the fact that they have not ran the football great this year, Arch. Started probably giving the predominant of their carries to Rachaad White, but that's kind of shifted to their rookie, Bucky Irving, over the last couple of weeks. Neither of them, though, has really controlled the pace of the game at the line of scrimmage. But then again, you got a quarterback that's feeling it, throwing the football. So to me, it's one of those games is, okay, we got to make sure that we don't let them end up getting their running game on check, but then that they're going to put the ball in the air probably 40 to 50 times with Baker Mayfield.
Well, and we know that from a copycat league standpoint, they're seeing that Atlanta's given up some run game in between the tackles. So they're going to test that area to say, hey, have you got that fix? Or are we going to be able to use that from a play action standpoint, get the run game going a little bit, get your linebackers coming downfield? And now I've got Godwin and I've got Evans one-on-one in the backfield. Cade Otton, excellent tight end, has developed into a really good player. Rachaad White's a good receiver out of the backfield, as is Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving a little bit more shifty, a little bit more make you miss in space type guy. Evans a little bit more of the banger, if you will, in their run game. But they haven't been able to run the football very well, guys, for the last several seasons, even when Brady was the quarterback there. And they've gone through several offensive coordinators, kind of kept the same philosophy. They want to throw the football, and Baker's playing at the highest possible level. Now, if you're going to look at a tape, go look at the Denver tape. Because Denver got after him.
Yes.
Denver limited him to 7 points at home, beat him soundly. They sacked Baker 7 times in that game. They've given up 15 sacks in their first 4 games. You don't have to do the math. I mean, that's just short of the quarter pole, but that's almost 4 sacks a game. Maybe this is the week where Atlanta starts to get some of that, get to the quarterback. But Atlanta, from a defensive standpoint, has been pretty consistent. They're playing cover 4. They're playing quarter, half. They're playing 2 high safeties a great deal.
A lot.
And that lends itself to run a little bit.
Right.
And so I think it'll be interesting to see what Jimmy Lake does to adjust to some of that. How much do you bring linebacker dog? You don't necessarily want to get caught with a lack of second-level defenders against this passing game. So it'll be interesting to see what the game plan is. And how much can you change, guys? How much do you think you can change from a Sunday game to a Thursday game as far as game plan goes? Such
a short week. I mean, it's like you go out on the field a couple of times. You might be doing walkthroughs. You might get up to about 75%.
Simplify for sure.
But you got to feel really confident, DJ, about your game plan because you're turning around quickly.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that's one thing you actually like about it. Usually you get these games late in the season where you've played a team already and you know what it's like to be, in division. You know what you're going to get. And the game plan is simplified. It's probably what you want, especially on the offensive side. You want to be be simplified where you're not putting in a lot of different wrinkles. And it happens on the other side, too, for them. They don't want to go out there, all right, we put in a brand new defense, and we haven't really repped it because we've been going through walkthroughs or we haven't seen it full speed. So don't expect to see all the glitz and glamour. There are going to be a couple of new wrinkles, I'm sure, for both teams. But the other thing I wanted to mention was the Falcons have to be good when you're talking about tackling, because this is a team, and think about Chris Godwin. He's got 332 yards. 188 he has yards after catch. You're talking about making plays after he catches the football. Rashad White's the same way. Another guy who Arch just mentioned out of the backfield who can make plays in space. And when you play a lot of coverage, guess what? There's going to be zones, and when a guy catches the football, you got to make sure you better get him on the ground and not to allow him to have more than the whatever catch he has.
I'm going to be calling this game for national radio, so I've already kind of dove into my preparation too. And Arch, I wanted to ask you, since you've seen so much of Bucs Falcons over the years, I've seen a lot of things about Lavonte David and how the players are just raving about this guy. They say he's Superman. Looked at some of the I think he's averaged like 123 tackles a season since back when he came into the league. How he continues to operate at such a high level, even later on in his years, at such a physical position, reminds me a little bit of a guy named Derek Brooks, where he's probably right behind Derek Brooks in all the major tackling categories for the Bucs franchise. But what have you seen from him over the years and the challenges that he presents?
Yeah, he's a killer when it comes to just trying to get him blocked. You look at his numbers just against the Falcons. He's got over 100 tackles for loss just against the Falcons in his career. Now, he's played a number of games. He's 34 years old, and he's played probably 30-some-odd games against the Atlanta Falcons, but he averages about 2 or 3 tackles for loss per game. Last weekend against Philadelphia, 8 tackles, had 2 sacks. That's not necessarily something you equate with Lavonte David as sacks, but he had 2 sacks against Jalen Hurts last weekend when they really snuffed out Philly's offense. So the guy's still playing at a high level, takes care of himself, does all the things he needs to do. But I think that when you start thinking about heartbeat of a team, Lavonte David is that guy, and he's a guy certainly you got to account for. Now, I don't think he's one of these kind of guys, Rack, that you're thinking, okay, wow, that guy's coming off the edge. We need to find him, get him blocked. It's not that kind of deal. He's just a guy that's an active dude that gets into plays.
Yeah,
and
he
makes
just
plays.
always finds the ball.
Yeah,
he's always around the ball.
Good way to say it. He finds the football and gets the football. They've got a different cast of characters. One guy that's not different is Vita Vea, the interior defensive tackle.
Monster.
He's been a problem for Atlanta in the past. Now, it's 6'3", 345 pounds. He's been a problem for a lot of people.
Hard to move,
at that size. So, but there are different cast of characters. They have not sacked the quarterback at the level, and I've got to find some wood to knock on here. They have not sacked the quarterback at the level they had with Shaq Barrett was there and some of the other guys that were coming off the edge. They're still trying to kind of figure that out. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka is maybe their best pass rusher off the edge. He's a guy that is out of Washington in about his 3rd year in the league. But they got 8 sacks through 4 games. And that's not a bad number, but it's not to the level that they normally are at. So, when I looked at their numbers, Rack, and you probably saw this, I mean, their defense is kind of doing similar to what Atlanta's defense is doing. They're kind of bending and not allowing you in the end zone, which is what Atlanta's done a really good job of. But what Shock said, they haven't put points on the board. Other than the Denver game, you're going to need to score some points in this game.
So, guys, I want to ask you about matchups and where you guys feel like it might be a challenge and where you might feel like Atlanta has opportunities in this game, DJ. And this could be player, this could be position group, this could just be strictly offense, defense. But let's start with matchups that you like in Atlanta's favor in this game, ones that they need to take advantage of to have success against Tampa Bay.
I think Tampa right now is allowing about 5-6 yards carry in this ball game, 5-6 yards a rush. I think this is a game where you can get back on track in the run game. And I think you want to be able to do it. Arch just mentioned a big physical guy in front of Vita Vea. Obviously, you got to get him blocked. That's number one priority. But we've seen guys who are game records and you find ways around it. And I think this is a game where you get back to creating that run element of your offense where here comes the play action, here comes the boots, and everything else starts with that. And I think that's been part of the reason the last couple games why offensively you haven't looked as fluid as you would like because not being able to get the run game going. So I think this is a game where it kind of gives you an opportunity to be able to get the run game going. And like Archie mentioned, hey, you can get Vita Vea blocked, you can get Levante blocked, and you got a chance. And I think this is a good enough offense to be able to do that up front. So I think the run game is a big test in this ballgame. Can you get that going and give yourself another dimension of the offense that helps you and helps your quarterback to have more success and sustaining drives? And we've talked about the third down problems that we've had over the last few games. First 3 ball games only had 2 conversions on third down. Last week we had 4. So it all goes back to success on those early downs. Can you run the football good enough to help yourself on third down? So hopefully this is a game where you get that going.
Yeah, run defense hadn't been too great for Atlanta, but as you mentioned, not great either for Tampa, allowing 131.5 yards per game. What's a matchup that you like, that one that potentially favors Atlanta in this game that they need to try to take advantage of?
Well, can you guys talked about, and Shock, you mentioned Baker wants to shove the ball down the field, and I'm interested in that. Will he be willing to do what we've seen the last 2 weeks? We saw a guy that likes to push the ball down the field, and Patrick Mahomes take what you gave him. Derek Carr wants to shove the ball down the field, but he did a really good job of kind of taking what Atlanta's given him. How much does Baker take solace in those 2 tapes and do the same thing, drop the ball off? I tend to think that the back end, he's going to be encouraged and taking. He wants to take shots to Evans. He got Evans going last week. You talked about he wants to take shots down the pipe to Godwin. I think the secondary, again, even though that's one of their strengths, Evans and Godwin and Shepard, the new third receiver there, Otten, the tight end, I really think we match up really well there. I like the matchup. I think that is AJ going to draw Evans? Probably, based on what we did this last weekend. AJ was shadowing Rashid Shaheed. Yep. And so AJ's probably going to shadow somebody, and I would imagine it's Mike Evans. So those matchups are going to be interesting. But I do like our back end, secondary-wise. I think our linebackers, the way they run, I think they're going to be able to get after the 2 backs. So as much as that's kind of the strength of who Tampa is right now, their offense, I think our defense matches up pretty well against them.
I want to throw this question out to you guys because I think you make a great point in the fact that some of these quarterbacks kind of taking what they're giving them, right? If like things are covered up downfield, they're just dropping it to the check down. In your guys' experience, how often did you ever have a safety tandem like Atlanta has where it's maybe made you think twice about taking those skinny posts down the middle of the field because you know how much experience and how successful guys like Simmons and Bates have been as far as picking off those? Like, do you think that has anything to do with it, DJ, the fact that they haven't taken as many shots down the middle of the field because of the ball-hawking safeties back there for Atlanta?
For sure. I mean, you got 2 of them. Usually you got one.
Yeah.
Usually you got or one corner that you're like, okay, I got to know where this guy is because this guy is an aggressive guy. Or you got a safety who, like last year we had in Jesse, who can cover, has a lot of range, and you got to find out where he is. Now you got 2 of them back there. Now I got to worry about 2 guys, or where's one at, or even if one's down in the box, how savvy they can be. It absolutely plays into your mind as a quarterback on where these guys are and their ability to be able to find the football. And I guarantee you, when any team starts their scouting report and they start talking about this Falcons defense, you talk about those 2 safeties. They're a big part of the conversation of you got to know where these guys are. The guys love to get the football out. Think about when we played New Orleans. First thing we talked about, freaking Honey Badger, because he will go find the football. And that's, you got one guy.
Yeah.
Now you got 2 guys, and both those guys who are really talented players, very smart players, very, very a good IQ when it comes to, reading the quarterback and all that kind of stuff. Absolutely plays a part in a quarterback's decision making.
I mean,
the other piece of it is they'll cheat.
Yeah.
And so if you get a natural look, you say, okay, it's cover 2, got a half. They'll show you a half look, and all of a sudden he'll cheat into the robber position, even though he's given up maybe the place he's supposed to be because of their experience. And you look up, and these 2 guys have 51 career interceptions. That's why.
Now, Patrick Mahomes tried to take a shot down the middle of the field against the Chiefs, and Simmons said, no. Let me get that real quick. All right, before we go, Shock, I want you to give me one key to the game this weekend, your most important key that needs to happen for the Falcons to win.
Somebody else other than Mike Evans got to beat you.
I like it.
Don't let Mike Evans beat you. Don't let him come in here and have a 150-yard ball game and 10 touches. You got to find somebody else who can beat you. Say they do that. Godwin has a big game, okay, but Mike Evans can't beat you.
Arch?
Boy, there's
So many, right?
He's like, you got to hold me to one?
the first down success thing. I'm going to talk. Let's eliminate the dumb penalty.
Ooh, that's a good one, man.
Eliminate the dumb penalty.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Touchdown off the board.
Man.
We got a couple plays taken away from us. So
Yeah.
eliminate the dumb penalty.
So disciplined, right? Got to play discipline, especially on a short week against the divisional opponent. And I'm going to say,
Yeah, we got to get
we got to win the turnover margin in this game. We've seen. Go ahead.
Hey, real quickly.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead. Finish that.
Win the turnover margin. We've seen some interceptions, and we got to protect the ball on offense. Yes, I want you to go ahead and expand on Matt Ryan real quick.
Yeah, real quickly, and I appreciate you letting me do that, Rack. I had a chance to go to the evening with Matt Ryan, which was on a Monday night down at the Buckhead Theater. Great job of the people down there at Buckhead Theater, and really good job by Truist, who was sponsoring it. But a really cool evening. Harry Douglas, shout out to Harry Douglas, former wide receiver here, came in the same draft class as Matt in 08. He was the MC of the event, and they walked through Matt's career. It's an unbelievable visit to go back and think about where this guy came from a little tiny high school that had 400 kids in it just outside Philadelphia to becoming arguably, I don't think it's an argument, I think he's a Hall of Fame quarterback here and probably the all-time greatest Falcon in history. But the guy it was a fun night. Just wanted to throw a shout out there. He's going to the Ring of Honor on Thursday night.
Yep.
I think he's our 15th player, I believe, going into the Ring of Honor. So congratulations to Matt. Way to go, Harry. Great job last night, and everybody was there, had a big night.
That's awesome. Yeah, Matt Ryan, such a pioneer for this organization, and very well said from you, Arch. Glad you got to experience it, and we look forward to seeing him in the building at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, get inducted to the Falcons Ring of Honor on Thursday night. Speaking of Thursday night, 8:15 p.m., Thursday Night Football, prime time again for the Falcons. Another opportunity against a divisional opponent that's sitting just above them right now in the standings. You can even that out, maybe create a little bit of a half-game advantage on this little run that we've got against a divisional opponent. So super important on a short week. Both teams are doing the same thing, but you got to be a pro and you got to come out ready to play and ready to execute and ready to win. That's going to wrap it up here for the Falcons Audible presented by AT&T. That's Shock. That's Arch. I'm Rack. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you back here next week. Thanks, everybody.